Every single product that touched my face for the past month came from one place, Dollar Tree. Not just my moisturizer, not just one serum I swapped out to make a fun video. I mean every single category: cleanser, toner, exfoliant, serum, moisturizer, eye cream, sunscreen, face mask, and lip balm. 9 categories, $9 store products, 1 full month, 0 exceptions. And today I'm walking you through exactly how that went, category by category, because some of these swaps genuinely worked better than I expected, and one of them was a real problem that I want to be honest with you about. Let me start with why I did this, because I think the reasoning matters for how you interpret the results. I've built up a skincare routine over the last several years that, if I'm being honest with myself, was costing me close to $250 a month once you add up every single step. I never actually sat down and calculated that number until I started planning this video, and once I did the math, I genuinely felt a little sick about it. So I wanted to find out, product category by product category, which parts of that spending were actually earning their keep, and which parts were just habit and marketing dressed up as necessity. I also want to explain my rules going into this before we get into the actual categories, because I think the structure of a challenge like this matters for how seriously you should take the results. No exceptions, no sneaking a single old product back in for even one day, even on days I was traveling or in a rush. If Dollar Tree didn't carry something close enough to what I normally used, I either found the closest reasonable substitute available or noted the gap honestly, rather than quietly filling it with my old product and pretending the challenge stayed pure. I think that discipline is the only thing that makes a month like this actually mean something, rather than just being a fun thumbnail with an asterisk nobody sees. Let's go category by category, starting with the beginning of any routine, the cleanser. My old cleanser was a gentle, pH-balanced gel cleanser that ran about $18 a bottle. The Dollar Tree replacement is a similar gentle gel formula, $1.50. The first few uses, I genuinely couldn't tell much of a difference. Both foamed lightly, both rinsed clean without that squeaky, stripped feeling that harsher cleansers leave behind. By about day 10, I actually started to prefer the Dollar Tree version slightly, mostly because the pump dispenser on my old bottle had started sticking, and the simple flip cap on the cheap one was just more convenient day to day, which sounds like a silly reason to prefer a product, but honestly, the parts of a routine that make you actually stick with it consistently matter more than people give them credit for. Next, toner. This was actually the category I was most nervous about going into this challenge, because toners vary wildly in quality. Some are genuinely useful hydrating steps, and some are just alcohol-based astringents left over from an outdated approach to skincare that can do more harm than good by disrupting your skin barrier over repeated use. My old toner was a hydrating, alcohol-free formula built around glycerin and a touch of niacinamide, $14. I read the Dollar Tree toner's label carefully before buying it specifically because of this concern, and thankfully, it's also alcohol-free, built around a similar humectant base. It felt slightly less silky going on, a touch more watery, but it did the job of prepping my skin for the next step without any stinging or tightness. I want to flag though, if you're shopping for a Dollar Tree toner yourself, actually check that ingredient list for alcohol denat near the top, because not every toner on that shelf is formulated this gently, and I got a little lucky here with which specific one I grabbed off a shelf with several different options. Third category, exfoliant. I used a chemical exfoliant twice a week in my old routine, a glycolic acid toner pad situation, about $22 for a tub of 60 pads. Dollar Tree didn't have an equivalent chemical exfoliant when I went looking. What they did have was a physical scrub. I want to be honest that this was the one swap I approached with real hesitation, because physical scrubs and chemical exfoliants work through completely different mechanisms, and I've talked before about how irregular, jagged scrub particles can actually cause micro tears in your skin that compromise your barrier over repeated use. I checked this particular scrub carefully in store, and it uses smooth, rounded jojoba-style beads rather than jagged ones, which made me comfortable enough to include it. But I want to be clear, this wasn't a true like-for-like swap. It's a different exfoliation method entirely, and your skin might respond differently to physical versus chemical exfoliation regardless of price point. This is genuinely a category where I'd encourage you to think about mechanism first and price second. Fourth, and this is the category most of you are probably here for, serum. I actually ran 2 serums simultaneously in my old routine, a vitamin C in the morning and a niacinamide layered under moisturizer at night, together running about $70 combined between the 2 bottles. Dollar Tree had both, a vitamin C serum and a separate niacinamide serum, $2 total between them. This is genuinely where I saw the most noticeable early changes. By around day 12, my skin looked a little more even in tone, and by day 20, that improvement had held steady rather than fading, which made me feel more confident it was a real effect and not just a temporary post-cleanse glow showing up in my photos that morning. I did keep both serums in the exact same order in my routine that I used with my old products: vitamin C strictly in the morning under sunscreen, niacinamide strictly at night, since that timing itself matters somewhat for how these actives perform and interact with sun exposure. Fifth, moisturizer. Arguably the backbone of any routine and the product sitting on your skin for the longest stretch of time each day, both overnight and throughout the day layered under makeup and sunscreen. My old moisturizer was a ceramide-based cream, $38. The Dollar Tree version is also ceramide-based, $1.25. This swap, out of all 9 categories, is the one I'm most confident recommending to literally anyone watching this video, regardless of your specific skin type or concerns. My skin felt just as soft, just as calm, and by the end of the month showed no signs of the occasional dry patches I sometimes get on my jawline during drier months, which has genuinely been a recurring issue for me even with my more expensive moisturizer in past years. If you only take one swap away from this entire video, make it this one. It's genuinely the strongest performer relative to its price out of every single category I tested this month. Sixth, eye cream. I'll be honest, this was already a category I was somewhat skeptical of before this challenge even started, because the research on dedicated eye creams outperforming a regular moisturizer applied to that area is genuinely thin, and I've said as much in other videos before this one. My old eye cream was $42, built around peptides and caffeine. The Dollar Tree version, $1.50, lists the same 2 headline ingredients on the label: caffeine for that temporary depuffing effect, and a peptide complex for longer-term collagen support. I didn't notice a meaningful difference between the 2 over the month, but I also didn't notice a dramatic effect from either one specifically for the eye area, beyond what my regular moisturizer already provides when I extended it up to that area, on days I ran out of the dedicated product. So take that as a wash rather than a strong endorsement either direction. This is genuinely a category where I think the entire product type might matter less than people assume, regardless of price. Seventh, sunscreen. And I want to be direct here because this is not a category where I'm willing to compromise on messaging even a little bit. Sun protection matters too much for me to soften this into vague, hedge everything language. My old sunscreen was a $50 mineral chemical hybrid formula that I'd been using for a couple of years. The Dollar Tree version is a $1.50 broad spectrum SPF 30. Both are regulated, tested products, and SPF 30 broad spectrum means the same thing regardless of the number on the price tag. That's not brand loyalty talking, that's simply how FDA testing standards actually work for every sunscreen sold in this country. The genuine difference I noticed was purely cosmetic. My old sunscreen blended slightly more invisibly under makeup, almost disappearing within seconds, while the Dollar Tree version left a very slight cast in certain lighting that took an extra few seconds of blending to fully disappear. Particularly noticeable in bright, direct sunlight rather than indoor lighting. Protection-wise, I have zero concerns recommending the swap. Cosmetically, your mileage may vary depending on your skin tone and your personal finish preferences under makeup. 8th, face mask, which I used once a week in my old routine, a clay-based deep cleansing mask, $16 for the tub, applied on Sunday evenings as part of a little self-care wind-down ritual before the new week started. Dollar Tree's version is also clay-based, $1.50. Genuinely no notable difference here. Clay is clay. It draws out oil and gives that tightening, slightly uncomfortable but satisfying sensation as it dries regardless of what brand name is printed on the jar. This felt like one of the more obviously interchangeable categories on the entire list, and honestly, I'm a little surprised more people don't already know this about clay masks specifically. And 9th, lip balm, the smallest, cheapest category, but honestly one I want to highlight specifically because the result here genuinely changed how I think about a couple of my other purchasing habits going forward. My old lip balm was a specialty formula with shea butter and vitamin E, $9, packaged in a nice little tin that I genuinely enjoyed the ritual of using. The Dollar Tree version is a simple petrolatum-based balm, 50 cents. By the end of the month, my lips were, if anything, slightly better hydrated with the cheap option, and there's a real, boring, scientific reason for that. Petrolatum is genuinely one of the single most effective occlusive ingredients that exists in skincare science, extensively studied for decades, and shea butter, while pleasant and a genuinely nice ingredient in its own right, simply doesn't seal in moisture quite as effectively by direct comparison. Sometimes the simplest, cheapest ingredient really is the best performing one, and this was the clearest, most unambiguous example of that principle in my entire month-long experiment. Before I move into talking about the month as a whole, I want to pause on one specific moment partway through, because I think it's worth sharing honestly. Around day 16, I hit a stretch of about 3 days where my skin looked noticeably more tired than usual, a little duller, slightly more textured under my normal camera lighting. My first instinct, honestly, was to blame the Dollar Tree routine immediately. That's just where my brain went after years of associating any skin hiccup with a product change. But when I actually looked back at my notes, that same 3-day window lined up exactly with a stretch of bad sleep and a stressful work deadline, nothing to do with any of the 9 products at all. I bring this up because I think it's a genuinely honest illustration of how easy it is to misattribute normal skin fluctuation to whatever variable you're currently paying the most attention to, and I wanted to catch myself doing that in real time rather than editing it out of the final story. Now let's talk about the month as a whole, not just category by category, because there were some things I only noticed by living with this full routine day after day rather than testing one product at a time in isolation, the way a lot of comparison videos tend to approach things. Around week 2, I stopped thinking about this as an experiment I was filming for you, and it genuinely just became my routine, which surprised me more than any single skin result did. I stopped instinctively reaching for the specific bottles I used to reach for out of years of habit, muscle memory that had built up over literal years of the same morning and evening sequence. My morning routine actually got a little faster too, since I wasn't fumbling with pumps and droppers that had started sticking or clogging on my old, more elaborate bottles. The simple flip caps and squeeze tubes on almost everything from Dollar Tree were, honestly, just more practical day to day, in a way I genuinely didn't anticipate mattering to me before I started this. I also want to talk about something that doesn't usually come up in these videos: storage and organization. Because everything I was using cost so little, I actually bought a few backups of the products I liked most partway through the month, just in case they got discontinued or my local store stopped carrying them, which is a genuine risk with rotating dollar store inventory that doesn't really exist with a major, established brand you can reorder online anytime with total confidence it'll be identical to the last bottle. That's a real practical downside worth mentioning. If you find a formula you love at Dollar Tree, there's no guarantee it'll be there next time you go back. Inventory at stores like this rotates constantly and isn't standardized store to store the way it is with a major national brand. So stocking up when you find something good is a genuinely reasonable strategy rather than overly cautious behavior. I also want to mention something about the emotional or psychological side of this experiment that I didn't fully expect going in. There's a specific kind of anxiety that comes with spending real money on skincare, a quiet worry about whether you're wasting it, whether the product is actually working, or you're just hoping it is because you already paid for it. A version of what's sometimes called sunk cost thinking, creeping into something as personal as your own daily routine. I genuinely felt less of that anxiety this month. When something didn't work as well, like the eye cream being a wash either direction, it cost me $1.50 to find that out instead of $42, and that lower stakes environment made me pay closer, more honest attention to what was actually happening on my skin, rather than unconsciously convincing myself an expensive product was working because I needed it to have been worth the money I'd already spent on it. I think that psychological shift, more than any single ingredient comparison, might genuinely be the most valuable thing I'm taking away from this entire month. I also want to mention the final skin check I did on day 30, since I think objective measurement matters more than just my own subjective impression after a month of looking at my own face daily and potentially getting used to gradual changes without fully registering them. I compared my day 1 and day 30 photos side by side under the same window lighting I'd used consistently throughout, and while I wasn't expecting a dramatic transformation given how gentle most of these swaps were, the overall consistency held up. No new breakouts, no increased dryness or flaking anywhere on my face, and if anything, slightly more even tone than where I started, which tracks with what I noticed happening gradually around the serum category, specifically earlier in the month. Let's talk numbers, because I think this is where the month really crystallized something for me, beyond just the individual category comparisons. My total spend across all 9 categories for the entire month was $9.50, and I want to repeat that number because it's genuinely hard to believe, even having lived through it myself. $9.50 for a complete morning and evening skincare routine for 30 full days. My old monthly routine, the one I finally sat down and calculated honestly at the start of this challenge, rather than avoiding the math the way I apparently had been for years, was costing me approximately $250. That's not a typo, that's a genuinely enormous gap. We're talking about a difference of over $2,800 a year if you extend this out across 12 months, money that could genuinely go toward almost anything else in your life instead. Now, does that mean I'm never touching my old products again? Honestly, no, and I want to be specific about why, rather than giving you a vague, hedge-everything answer that doesn't actually commit to anything. The one category I'd bring back from my old routine is my chemical exfoliant specifically, not because the Dollar Tree scrub was bad, it genuinely wasn't, but because chemical and physical exfoliation are genuinely different tools doing different jobs through completely different mechanisms, and I miss the specific predictable results I get from glycolic acid that a physical scrub simply can't replicate no matter how gentle the beads are. Everything else, the cleanser, toner, serums, moisturizer, sunscreen, mask, and especially that lip balm, I'm genuinely, seriously considering keeping permanently, not just for the sake of finishing out a video concept, but because a full month of consistent, real use gave me genuine confidence that the performance gap, where it exists at all, is nowhere close to proportional to the price gap between these two versions of my routine. I know some of you are going to point out that one person's skin over 1 month isn't a scientific study, and you're completely right, it isn't, and I don't want to overstate what this challenge actually proves, beyond my own personal, honest experience. Your skin type, your climate, your specific concerns, your history with certain ingredients, all of that could reasonably change how any of these 9 swaps perform for you individually in ways I simply can't predict or account for from my own single data point. What I can tell you honestly is what actually happened on my own face, tracked consistently, category by category, over 30 real days with real photos and real notes along the way, and I think that's a genuinely useful data point for you to weigh against your own situation, even if it's not a controlled clinical trial with a large sample size behind it. I also want to leave you with one broader thought before I wrap up, because I think it matters beyond just this specific month-long experiment. The skincare industry as a whole benefits enormously from you never actually questioning whether the price you're paying correlates with the performance you're getting. That uncertainty, that little nagging feeling that maybe the expensive option really is worth it, is genuinely part of what keeps a lot of premium pricing structures intact across this entire category of products. Actually testing that assumption, one category at a time, the way I did this month, is available to literally anyone with a bit of patience and a willingness to be a little uncomfortable during the adjustment period, and I think more people should feel empowered to try it for at least a few categories in their own routine, even if a full 9-category swap like mine feels like too much all at once. If you want the exact product list from every single category, brand names, prices, everything, let me know in the comments and I'll put together a full shopping guide video breaking down exactly what I bought and where I found it on the shelf, aisle by aisle, so you don't have to hunt around the way I did on my first trip. And if you've ever done a similar full routine swap yourself, whether at Dollar Tree or anywhere else, I'd love to hear how it went for you and what you learned along the way. Drop it below. Thanks so much for watching this whole month with me, and I'll see you in the next one.